When we settled on the title of this talk, few people could have realized how apt it would be when the time came. That is, how dramatically the world would be changing, how far-reaching are the implications for domestic and world order. I'm referring, of course, to the democracy uprising in the Arab world. It's been quite a spectacular display of courage, dedication, and commitment by popular forces, and it happened to coincide, fortuitously, with a remarkable uprising of tens of thousands of people in support of working people and democracy in Madison, Wisconsin, and a number of other U.S. cities still continuing. One very telling event took place on February 20th, in the middle of both of these uprisings. Kamal Abbas is a labor leader, one of the major labor leaders in Egypt, sent a message from Tahrir Square to Wisconsin in the name of the Egyptian labor organizations. It said simply, "We stand with you as you stood with us." Well, as I said, Abbas is a leader of the many years of struggle in Egypt for elementary rights. This uprising on January 25th didn't come out of nowhere. There's a significant background. Actually, the background is worth thinking about. As I'm sure you know, the January 25th uprising was initiated by a small group of tech-savvy young people who call themselves the April 6th movement. The reason for the name is that in April 6th, 2008, there was a major labor action prepared at one of the biggest industrial sites in Egypt, the Mahala textile plant. It's to be a strike for better wages, decent working conditions, and so on. And it was to be in connection with a large solidarity actions. All of that was crushed right away by the dictatorship. Didn't have any resonance in the West, but remembered in Egypt. So that's the April 6th demonstration, non-demonstration, the name of the movement that started the January 25th uprising with its remarkable consequences. Abbas's measure of solidarity evoked the traditional aspiration of the labor movements throughout the world, solidarity among workers of the world and in general among populations of the world. Well, however flawed their records may be, labor movements have regularly been in the forefront of popular struggles for basic rights and for democracy. In Tahrir Square in Cairo, in the streets of Madison, and many other places, the popular struggles that are underway now reach quite directly to the prospects for authentic democracy, that is, for socio-political systems in which people are free and equal participants in controlling the institutions in which they live and work. That's contrary to standard democratic theory, which holds that people should be spectators, not participants, leave the important things to others. Right now, the trajectories in Cairo and Madison are intersecting, but they're headed in opposite directions. In Cairo, they're heading towards gaining elementary rights that were denied by the US-backed, British-backed dictatorships. In Madison, they're directed towards defending rights that had been won in long and hard struggles, now under severe attack. And in fact, the fundamental right of collective bargaining has just been eliminated by the governor and the legislature in Madison. there are sure to be far-reaching consequences of what is taking place in the decaying industrial heartland of the richest and most powerful country in the world, in fact in human history, and what is taking place in what President Eisenhower many years ago called the most strategically important area in the world, a stupendous source of strategic power, probably the richest economic prize in the world in the field of foreign investment. Those are the assessments of the State Department, U.S. State Department in the 1940s, and of course that was a prize that the U.S. intended to keep for itself and for its allies in the unfolding world order of that day. Well, despite all the changes since, there's every reason to suppose that today's policymakers are still guided by a judgment that was articulated by one of President Roosevelt's leading advisors, A. Burley, who observed that control of the incomparable energy reserves of the Middle East would yield substantial control of the world. And correspondingly, that loss of control would threaten the project of global dominance that was clearly articulated during World War II, that has been sustained in the face of major changes in world order since that day, and that is very much alive today. You can be confident that in the major planning centers of the United States, Britain, France, other countries with some intent on global reach, they're very much concerned that loss of control of the energy reserves of the Middle East will undermine the prospects for control of the world, and are acting accordingly. You'll have noticed, I'm sure, that the closer demonstrations come to the U.S. British-dominated oil-producing centers, the harder, the lower the prospects for demonstrations. Yesterday in Saudi Arabia and Kuwait, the major centers, the demonstrations were crushed before they started. You give some lessons to China. In Riyadh, not a single person showed up, too frightened, and no comment from the West. I checked the U.S. newspapers this morning, no comment. If it had happened in Iran, there'd be major headlines, you can be sure. But too much is at stake when you get to the real centers of power. In fact, President Obama has changed the rhetoric, the official rhetoric, with regard to democracy uprisings as they come close to significant areas. Actually, he and other Western leaders did not support the uprisings. In fact, the only political leader to support the uprisings strongly and immediately was Prime Minister Erdogan of Turkey, who's by far the most respected leader in the area. The others waited, and when it was clear that you couldn't preserve your favorite dictators anymore, they followed the usual game plan and send them out to pasture and try to maintain the regime. And they did use words like regime change at the end, because as it gets to Bahrain and Saudi Arabia and Kuwait, the terminology changed officially to regime alteration, so maybe some slight modification.